Sammy Watkins just moments ago was removed from the practice field with what was called, hold on, let me get right here. According to Ted Cruz, who's the VP of Communications for the Chiefs, he hurt his hip a little bit, so they pulled him out. And then we find out Nick Foles, who's probably not going to start anyway, has an upper body soreness,
right?
Which could be anything. So
I have that every day of my life.
And that Antonio Brown gets sent home for just a little something.
Right.
And we're not going to see Doug Baldwin because precautions.
Yeah.
How do you handle all of this injury news when it's not so obvious for your fantasy
league? Well, it's a couple of different ways. First off, very lucky on the podcast, on the fantasy show, Stefania Bell, who's our injury analyst. She does a great job. She works harder than anyone at ESPN. So mostly what I do is I just ask Stefania.
Nice.
And but I will say that it's sort of a case-by-case basis. So Sammy Watkins, who has a long injury history, makes you a little nervous. To your point about Nick Foles, is he going to start? Even if Wentz misses the first game or something like that, chances are you're not starting Nick Foles in your league. Like you could go to the waiver wire and get another quarterback, so you're not really worried about that one. Antonio Brown doesn't really miss games. Not really worried about Antonio Brown. Doug Baldwin is the one that's the most curious to me. Like, that makes you a little nervous, especially because Baldwin is somebody who I love coming in this year. 175 targets, I believe, between Jimmy Graham and Paul Richardson left the team. And we'll see if Brandon Marshall has anything left, Jerron Brown, But honestly, I felt like Doug Baldwin is coming into the best fantasy situation of his career. A guy who has more touchdowns over the last 3 years than any wide receiver other than Antonio Brown. Just a great wide receiver who's always undervalued in fantasy. And then now this knee thing. But listen, Pete Carroll, now, candidly, Pete Carroll's always optimistic. You know what I mean? Very,
yes, he is.
Very optimistic.
Yes,
so you always have to take what Pete says with a grain of salt, but seems to be okay on Doug Baldwin. I think it lowers him a little bit, but there's never been major injury history with Baldwin.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.